Today we are journeying through some eerie and captivating reincarnation stories as we count down the top 10 mysterious people who remember being on the Titanic in a past life. I felt like the title was gonna end sooner than it did. It felt very long. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Reddit story. This story comes from Reddit user NextGuitar2992, and they were replying to a post asking if anybody remembers being on the Titanic in a past life. They replied with, quote, "Maybe? I'm one who's on the fence about past lives and such, but I don't know about this. I'm obsessed with the Titanic, and I asked my mom as a joke if I maybe reincarnated from it, and she said without hesitation, yes you are. Which got me thinking. I knew about the Titanic before I could even speak. She says that even as a 1-year-old I was drawing the ship as best as I could and drawn to the ship. The first time I saw A Night to Remember and the Titanic 1997, the sinking scenes just felt off. Even the breakup in the 97 movie, I said, that's not right. Mind you, I was around 4 to 6 when I saw it, and I was right. The sinking scenes in both movies are said to be inaccurate. I've always known the fourth funnel was for decoration when no one else around me knew. I've always had an obsession with the second class areas. I've always hated water, literally for no reason. I just hate it and I don't know why. Same goes for cold. I can't handle anything under 45 degrees or I'll have a panic attack. Again, I don't know why, it just happens. I've always been looking up facts and such about the Titanic, and when I look up the lost ladies, I had a major anxiety attack. Never happened before when I was reading things about other survivors and victims. And lastly, I've always had an obsession with the Titanic and its stories, and I still do. Could just be coincidence, but sometimes I wonder. In our number 9 spot today we have Jessica Brooks. Jessica is an accomplished violinist with a profound connection to a tragic chapter in maritime history because she firmly believes that she had a past life on the Titanic, not as a passenger, but as a member of the ship's orchestra, playing music that echoed through the grand halls of the doomed vessel. Her claim is supported by an uncanny and detailed knowledge of the Titanic's musical repertoire, despite having never studied it in her current life. Even more compelling is her unusual affinity towards the hymn Nearer My God to Thee. This hymn is notably significant as it's widely spread to have been the last song played by the Titanic's band as the ship succumbed to the icy waters of the North Atlantic. This strong emotional connection to the hymn and her vivid past life memories make Brooks' case exceptionally compelling. In our number 8 spot today we have Lucinda Green. Lucinda is a woman with an uncanny and heart-wrenching connection to the Titanic. Green's ties to the ship trace back to her childhood when, long before she learned about the ill-fated vessel, she would draw detailed images of a large ship colliding with an iceberg. This peculiar fixation turned out to be the tip of the iceberg of her mysterious link to the Titanic. As Green grew older, she began to express detailed memories of a past life. She insisted that she had been Mary, a nanny aboard the Titanic tasked with the care of 2 young children. Her recollections were far from rosy nostalgia. She described the deafening chaos of the ship sinking, the shrieks of metal, the panicked cries of passengers, the chilling sound of wailing. Most distressingly, she remembers being helplessly separated from her charges amidst the confusion, a memory that brought her great distress. What makes Green's story all the more captivating is its corroboration by historical facts. Records from the Titanic reveal that there was indeed a nanny named Mary aboard the ship who tragically lost those under her care. This astonishing alignment between Green's memories and documented history lends considerable weight to her claims. In our number 7 spot today we have the birthday connection. This past life story comes from a Reddit user called lowstick6746, and they wrote about how their initial Titanic connection comes from the fact that their birthday falls on April 18th, the day when the Titanic survivors reached New York. However, her connection to the ill-fated ship remains elusive, confined to dreams of witnessing its construction and fleeting glimpses of elegant, well-dressed individuals from a distance. These encounters evoke a sense of observing a higher social class without being a part of it, leaving her with a feeling of detachment. A cruise she embarked on shortly after the release of the Titanic film proved to be an eventful journey. Amidst the challenges of rough seas, a peculiar incident occurred. One evening after dinner she strolled along an exterior promenade and a distinct familiarity overcame her. The chilly air, the sound of her shoes on the deck, everything seemed eerily recognizable. Looking down, she caught a glimpse of her shoes shoes and the wet decking, triggering a sense of deja vu. Her mind connected the dots, recalling that her shoes were once black, much like her dress in that dream. It was an odd realization since she had never owned a black dress in her waking life. Despite her strong affinity for the Titanic, she lacks any fascination or interest in other ships, leading her to question the extent of her involvement. In our number 6 spot today, we have William Barnes. In his early childhood, William Barnes exhibited signs that hinted at a connection to the ill-fated Titanic in a past life. At the tender age of 4, he astounded his parents by drawing a ship with 4 smokestacks and declaring, "This is my ship, but she died." Curiously, he insisted on being called Tommy and spoke of siblings, aunts, uncles, and brothers who were unknown to his parents, as well as troubling nightmares that plagued his sleep. Years later, at the age of 25, having relocated to Washington, D.C., William sought the guidance of a counselor proficient in hypnosis. During one session, he engaged in a fervent debate about the ship's design while under a trance, and upon emerging, he declared with certainty, "My name is Tommy Andrews." This marked the first time that he had uttered the complete name. At 38, after embarking on a new marriage and moving to Arizona, William startled his wife, Mary Ann, during a restless night's sleep, passionately arguing and uttering unfamiliar names with a very distinct accent. Ultimately, these strange occurrences affected his life so much, and finally in 1997 he was referred to Dr. Frank Baranowski, a psychologist renowned for employing hypnotic age regression to aid individuals in overcoming phobias. Initially skeptical, William approached the regression sessions with doubt, convinced that they would be futile. However, to his astonishment, the therapy proved effective for him. The sessions were meticulously recorded and later released, and in the recordings, listeners can hear William speaking as Tommy Andrews with his distinctive Irish accent, recounting the harrowing events of the Titanic sinking and reliving his own tragic demise on the ship's deck. In our number 5 spot today, we have Bess Waldo Daniels. This story comes from someone who uses the online username Bessie A, and they wrote about how they firmly believe that their past life was intertwined with the tragic tale of the Titanic. Recounting their memories as Bess Waldo Daniels, the validation of their past existence as Bess stems from an intriguing discovery. Photographs of her husband and children bear an uncanny resemblance to the images that once flashed through their mind. They have distinct memories from this life that go all the way back to childhood, memories of their sister, their parents, and even later memories as well, ones that include their past life husband, Hud. Curiously, their memories skip the moments of meeting and marrying Hudson. Instead, they recall the births of both their children, Helen and Hutsy. While their memories encompass the Titanic, they admit gaps concerning the journey from Canada to England and their activities in England. Their recollections resume within their stateroom, basking in the sunlight streaming through the porthole. On the night of the sinking, Hudson briefly disappears, but upon his return he leads everyone to the boat deck, cautioning against using the elevators and urging the stairs instead. Though their memories fail to bridge the gap between reaching the boat deck and the subsequent events, a serene atmosphere pervades their recollection. People converse calmly in groups, interrupted only by the arrival of a tall man with a brown beard, whose words escape their memory but stir a feeling of discomfort within them. Turning their attention to Hudson, they observe a profound change in his demeanor, as if life itself drains from his being. Suddenly, they find themselves in a boat surrounded by fearful and anxious individuals. A scared-looking woman with distinct cheekbones sits next to them, while another refined lady, very English, occupies a nearby seat. Amid the chaotic scene, they cry out but cannot recall their exact words. Waiting at a nearby boat, 2 officers, identifiable by their uniforms and hats, accompany them, but suddenly, as if the ship vanishes beneath their feet, the man loses grip and they descend into the ocean depths. The original post explains that they had to cut out so many of the details that they can remember, and I also had to cut out details that they did include for the sake of this video, so it's very clear that this person has a ton of memories of this past life. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Grand Staircase. This post came from the Reddit user called Vish Trinity, and they titled their post, "I am sure I died in the Titanic." They continued on to write, "I was 6 when my mother told me about a ship named the Titanic that sank in 1912, and that's when I started getting dreams where I could see the vast deck, the ballroom, the famous Grand Staircase. I would also get dreams about about floating in the ice-cold water, seeing the huge ship break in two, and a lot of things. This was a year before the movie came out. Also, let me tell you, my mother never told me how the ship sank or about the interiors of the ship, as in the ballroom, deck, etc. When the movie came out, it was like deja vu for me. All the scenes felt like I had been there and experienced it before. So I'm sure I was on the Titanic and died in the ice-cold water on that fateful night in a past incarnation. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Titanic Memory. This story comes from Reddit user Commodore Comac, and they wrote in the past lives thread, and they said, quote, "I appreciate the fact that there are many more people who claim to have been on the Titanic in a past life than could have possibly been on the ship, but when I was 11 years old, I had the clearest dream that I have ever had, and that includes the subsequent 3 decades of my life. I'm standing on the deck of the ship, I'm in a heavy fur coat, and my gloved hands are holding on to a wooden rail. Overhead is a night sky filled with stars, but no moon. 4 funnels stretch above me. There is the sizzle of white rockets racing towards the stars. The ship is sinking by the bow. There is darkness and water. I die. A year later, I read the book A Night to Remember. Then I learned about the sinking of the Titanic, a ship with 4 funnels. Sank by the bow on a clear night. Fired distress rockets. Not enough lifeboats. Logical explanation? Easy. Overheard a story, saw something on the television, happened to have a dream about a ship and just happened to get some facts right. But it didn't feel like a dream then, and it still doesn't. In our number 2 spot today, we have Mark Robert Hopkins. This person posted online with their story, and they wrote, quote, "They're not as much memories as familiar sensations, really. The distant sound of violin music playing, the feeling of plush carpet beneath me, the flickering of wall sconces, the cramped feeling of slowly working my way up a stairwell with many others, a slanting deck, a vast black wall of metal rising up along one side, the biting cold air, the sound of metal grinding and booming sounds popping in the darkness, the feeling of aloneness and desperation of being isolated in a lifeboat in a vast body of water at night miles from anywhere. It all seems so familiar, and this was even before I began learning about the Titanic. As a matter of fact, the curiosity behind it drew me into the Titanic. As for who, definitely not someone important. Somehow the identity of a 10, 12, or 14-year-old boy stands out to me, first or second class with the last name O something, as in O'Brien, for example, although I don't remember there having been any O'Briens in first or second class. The sensations are vivid, not cohesive. It's like they're latent or submerged in trying to put themselves together and come to the surface, like pieces of very old memories. Others I know are supportive of this and agree with the possibility that I just may have been on the Titanic. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Robert Ballard. Renowned oceanographer Robert Ballard carved a unique place for himself in history when he discovered the wreckage of the ill-fated RMS Titanic in 1985. But the intriguing aspect of Ballard's connection to the Titanic extends beyond his historical discovery. Throughout his life, Ballard was fueled by a deep, inexplicable connection to the Titanic, an uncanny bond that was pivotal in his relentless pursuit of the ship's final resting place. Some paranormal researchers have contemplated on the nature of this very extraordinary connection. They posit that Ballard may have had a past life association with the Titanic, suggesting that his intense drive to find the ship was more than a mere professional ambition or a personal obsession. Could it be that he was subconsciously attempting to unravel the threads of his own past? A past that was tragically intertwined with the Titanic's ill-fated voyage? Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Thank you, Taylor. It's so squeaky. Thank you, I love you. Taylor just brought me a fresh coffee. What about that, man? Honest to God, what a gentleman. Thanks, Taylor. Internet. Love if I could hang out for a bit. What's up? We'll collab.